Now let's concentrate for a while on Kenley, which is, after all, the last regular Carolina telephone exchange on this phone trip. I did get back later that year and go to Henderson, however. Yikes, another Carolina telephone step with ESS ring. But let's not forget Morehead City. Recorded in 1974, and then of course there was New Bern, which I had to record with a microphone in 1974 since they didn't have Northern Telecom Centurion phones yet. Okay, I promise, only 10 minutes more of the main Carolina telephone area. Now from Kenley, which doesn't have ESS ring, here's a regular use of the callback circuit to ring my own phone. Now this is still Carolina telephone, so it's a safe bet that if we start a local call ringing through that callback circuit and the party answers, it's not going to let me talk to them. It'll probably cut them off. Let's find out. Alright, just what I expected. However, I was able to do it in Gettysburg, a different phone company, just about a year ago. Now here, the service codes, like 411, are reached by dialing 7 first, while the EAS calls to Wilson are reached by dialing 8 first. Again, this is a standard Carolina telephone thing, except west of here, when it starts to change, you don't see this much of that stuff. So this is really the last office that we're going to touch that has this crazy cryptic code thing going on. There are some other things on the 7 selector besides 411 and 611. For example,
Yes, 284-3299.
3299.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the wrong number.
Thank you.
now from Wilson itself, they did something very strange for the service codes. You dialed 9, which went into the NX1, plus the service code, and then that would turn around and dial right back into the step. From here, 7 goes into a special selector in Wilson, so you dial 7411 or 7611, but we could probably also route the service codes through the NX1 in Wilson. Now earlier I got directory assistance on 7411 from Kenley. Let's try dialing 8, that's the EAS code, to get to Wilson, and then 9, that'll go into the 291 NX1 office, and then 411. If it works, we'll hear the NX1 picking up a trunk to the Wilson step and dialing something, and we'll get directory assistance through this other way. Instead of 7411, 89411. Let's try it.
direct assistance.
Oh, got you by mistake. Bye. Oh, this is interesting. I can have two routings to directory assistance. One, I dial 7411. The other way, I dial 8 and then 9 to get into the NX1 in Wilson, and then dial 411. Let me demonstrate the two routings to repair service.
Telephone repair service, may I have the number you're reporting? Telephone repair service, may I have the number you're reporting?
Now I'll record calls to 291, for which you dial 8 first. 291 is an NX1, through which you just heard me get repair and directory assistance.
The number you have reached has been disconnected or is no longer in service. If you feel you have reached this recording in error, please check the number or try your call again.
Now here are some calls to the Wilson step, including a real vacant number, not to be confused with vacant level.
We're sorry, you have reached a number that has been disconnected or is no longer in service. If you feel you have reached this recording in error, please check the number or try your call again. We're sorry, you have reached a number that has been disconnected or is no longer in service. If you feel you have reached this recording in error, please check the number or try your call again.
Now that really was a vacant number, which sounds very much like the vacant level actually, except you can tell the initial ring tripped because it reached an actual individual terminal. When you call a vacant number, you actually hear the real ring for a second trip out.
We're sorry.
When you call a vacant level, you hear a ringtone, but the ringtone is just a sound effect.
We're sorry.
And before I go, we'll call a ringing Kenley number through the callback circuit, and I'll just superimpose a reorder on top of the ring. Well, that's it for the main Carolina telephone area. You know, it's a good thing that the day went on after Kenley. It didn't end here, because had it done so, I would have lain in bed trying to go to sleep, but instead just thinking things like this.
So you're at a coin telephone and wouldn't be able to dial direct from a coin. You'd have to have the operator place your call for you. I can have one call you back if you like to receive credit for the dime you put in.
We're sorry. We're sorry. We're sorry.
You dial
8 before the number. 8 before the number. 8 before the number. 8 before the number. You want to pay or shall I make it select?
That pretty much sums it up. Anyway, let's go on to Clayton. Still Carolina telephone, but quite different. One of the things that's different is that there is another Carolina telephone office. The operator didn't tell me about this one, which Clayton has analog carrier to. Can't tell whether it's 2600 controlled, but it probably is. Might be 3700 controlled. I don't know where it is or what the office code is, but there's a 3 in the office code, because 3, if you dial it from Clayton, just goes there. And then if you dial 11, you get a recording done by the same lady as does the Clayton recordings. Here's 3 followed by 11 from Clayton.
We're sorry. You have reached a number that has been disconnected or is no longer in service. If you feel you have reached this recording in error, please check the number or try your call again. We're sorry. You have reached a number that has been disconnected or is no longer in service. If you feel you have reached this recording in error, please check the number or try your call again.
Well, that is definitely different. Carolina Telephone likes T-Carrier so much that that is really the only analog carrier local trunk between two Carolina Telephone buildings that I've ever encountered. Now here in Clayton, of course, there's a large local calling area because the entire city of Raleigh is included. Now, as you might have noticed in the last segment, all of the Raleigh numbers begin with 7 and 8. That's not an accident. What it enables them to do is to concentrate the Raleigh calls onto tandem trunks. There are effectively 2 tandems for Raleigh, although it's really 2 selector groups in the downtown Raleigh step. When you dial 7 and when you dial 8, you go down on T-Carrier to the step in the downtown building, and then selectors in that step take the rest of the digits and put the call through, very much like if you were dialing from the Raleigh step itself. Now here are 2 calls to ringing numbers in the Raleigh step. We'll dial 8. That'll put us on T-Carrier down to the Raleigh step, and then the rest of the number will be dialed over those trunks. And after each digit, you will hear step cut-in noises, except the last 2 digits, which of course are on the connector switch, and there's no cut-in noise there. If you dial 7 or 8, and then the next digit isn't the beginning of a Raleigh number, you get the vacant level recording from the Raleigh step. Here's 7 followed by 0.
We're sorry. You have reached a number that has been disconnected or is no longer in service. If you feel you have reached this recording in error, please check the number or try your call again. We're sorry.
I tried to hang up. I didn't hang up long enough. And so the trunk to the Raleigh step reset. Now the selector down in Raleigh is waiting for another number, and I could actually sit here indefinitely because the step selectors don't time out. And you could dial any Raleigh 7 number at this point. You just dial the last 6 digits and the call will go through. So let's dial a 737 number, which is a crossbar 5 that has a pager system in it. When I dial the 3, you'll hear it cut in to a trunk, and it's to a trunk in this very same building, the downtown building. Then the next 5 digits won't make any noises at all, because when you have a trunk within the same building to a number 5 crossbar, it doesn't make a noise after each digit. After the last digit, you'll hear the line link pulsing arrangement sound, that sort of blip to clip, and then at that point the crossbar 5 is dialing into the pager system, and you'll hear it start to ring, but I'm going to hang up pretty quick. The trunks that we get on 7 and 8 here to the Raleigh step are T-carrier. Now, I'm not a big fan of T-carrier, but in this particular situation, there are some good things about it. For one thing, it's newer T-carrier from 1974 or later, so it really is pretty clear. There's a fuzziness, but there isn't a terrible ratty sound that the earlier T-carriers had. Then there's the fact that when you have T-carrier into a step, the equipment does allow you to hear all the details. If this were N2 or N3 carrier, after we dialed each digit, there would be a pause during which the sounds coming from the distant end would be masked, and we would not be able to hear all those nice step cut-in noises coming from Raleigh. So the T-carrier does allow us to hear that. And it's also so transparent that you can actually hear some of the sounds that are coming from the wire trunks that the Raleigh step uses to get to our destination. This next call is a very good example of that. I'm going to dial 7. That'll put us into the Raleigh step tandem, and then we'll take it from there. Okay, we're now on that first incoming selector in the Raleigh step tandem. We've dialed a 7. The next digit is going to cut into a trunk to a crossbar 5. This is a wire trunk that's several miles long, so it's got repeaters, and the noise of the cut-in has a very distinct hard sound that actually comes from the resonance of the trunk because the repeaters are on it. Here's that second digit now. Now when I dial all the subsequent digits, you'll hear another noise. You hear that ka-tuh? I'll dial the next one. Ka-tuh. That's a very common thing on steps. It only occurs on the wire trunks that have repeaters. The wire trunks within the same building don't do it, but if it's like 5 or 10 miles away and a wire trunk, ka-tuh. That's a relay arrangement that operates to improve the accuracy of the dial pulses over those long wire trunks. As soon as it detects that some dial pulse digit is being sent, it effectively bumps up the voltage on the trunk for the duration of the digit, and then at the end of the digit it puts it back to normal, and that goes ka-tuh. That's the sound of it going back to normal. As I dial the last digit now, listen carefully and you'll hear a hum that comes on the line for just half a second or so. It'll go ka-tuh as the marker is being called, and you can actually hear that through this T-carrier.
that is not in service at this time. If you feel you have reached this recording in error, please check the number or try your call again. We are sorry. You have reached a number that is not in service at this time. If you feel you have reached this recording in error, please check the number or try your call again. We are sorry.
Here's another crossbar 5 call, which goes through the same way as the last one. This one doesn't have a noticeable hum when the marker call occurs, however. I can't tell from the tape whether I lost my dime or not on that call. Some steps do have a certain amount of supervision grace on outgoing calls that answer. The Bell System number 1 steps don't. They'll take your dime immediately. But the smaller Bell System 355 steps do have some grace period. If you hang up within a second or two, you do get your dime back. In any case, even if my dime were going to be collected on that call, when I tried to hang up, I again reset the Raleigh step tandem. And so it would be possible to make a string of phone calls on a single dime, as long as they all began with 7 or all began with 8. You would just make the first call, and then at the end of it, hang up not quite long enough to completely disconnect, and then redial the 6 digits of whatever second number you wanted to call. That was actually possible to do in steps all over the place during the 1970s. Carolina Telephone has a lot of steps with the SS ring. Sort of a fake modern ring. You can tell that it's not real modern ring because while the 2 frequencies that you need, 440 and 480, are there, you can also hear the 20 hertz ring current mixed in with it. Well, the Bell System has a lot of crossbar 5s with fake modern tones. And there's one in the downtown Raleigh building, the 82s. There is also a number 1 ESS in the downtown building. This one, of course, has real modern tones. I didn't hang up long enough, but this time, instead of resetting the Raleigh step, I've reset the downtown ESS. You can tell because there's no selector noise in the background. There's a subtle hum that's on these trunks when you dial 7 or 8, and that hum isn't here, so we've reset the trunk to the ESS instead. That means I can redial the last 4 digits and ring a different number than the one we dialed initially. In all of Raleigh, and all of Raleigh's local calling area, there's only one central office building that has City Ring, and that's the downtown building. Some of the crossbar 5s in that building have City Ring as well. Here I'm going to dial 7-3. The 7 goes to the Raleigh tandem, the 3 goes into that same crossbar 5 that had the pager system in it, and then we'll dial 1, which is an invalid steering digit. The office has 733 and 737 in it. If you dial 731, the crossbar 5, which we've already connected to, has to intercept that one way or another, and in this case we'll hear a burst of City Ring, followed by its own vacant code recording.
We're sorry, but we have a problem in completing your call as dialed. Please check the number and dial again or ask your operator to help you. This is a recording. We're sorry.
That crossbar 5 was nice enough to intercept our call by giving us a recording when we dialed 731, and the office only has 733 and 737. Other crossbar 5s, however, don't always have that arrangement, and so if you get into the crossbar 5 and you dial a bad steering digit, you'll just get a reorder. Here are 2 calls in a row, each to a different crossbar 5. They both have the same type of tone plant. They both go out on wire trunks from the Raleigh step, so you get cathode on the last 5 digits. But if you listen carefully, you can tell they're not the same office because there are subtle qualities that makes one reorder slightly different from the other. Those offices didn't bother to set up the recording to intercept vacant steering digits. Here's one that did set up the recording, but maybe they shouldn't have. Sounds like they're having a problem in not completing my call. Yes, there's a problem there. The real ring tripped. That's fine, but then...
We're sorry, but we have a problem in completing your call.
It's still ringing. Yeah, somebody got confused because centralized intercept is supposed to do exactly that. Centralized intercept trips the real ring and then puts on a phony ring just like that until the centralized recording gets around. This, however, was a local repeating recording, and all they were supposed to do is install a ring trip device to make the ring stop, and that's it. They instead added something thinking that this was supposed to be set up like the centralized intercept trunks are. By the way, what trips the ring is a device called a cold cathode tube, which is really sort of like a neon bulb on steroids. The idea is to present a short to the 90-volt AC ringing current while appearing to be completely open as far as the 48-volt DC talk power is concerned. The cold cathode tube does that very elegantly because the ring stops as surely as it would if a phone was picked up, but the line remains on hook as surely as if a phone had never been picked up. In the 1970s, Ben and I were very enamored with these devices and really appreciated the way they sounded. We even made our own homemade ring trip devices from relays, capacitors, and combinations thereof. Now here's a call to a crossbar 5 with pseudo-modern tones, which illustrates what happens when the cold cathode tube is either missing or not working anymore. I know that sounded very much like the last call, but it actually is for a completely different reason. Instead of a phony ring, that was the real ring, which never tripped because the cold cathode tube wasn't there or was broken. Well, there's one more thing before I go from Clayton that I did discover, and that is if you dial 7 plus 11, this is what happens.
Direct assistance, your number, please.
This puzzled me at first because you dial 4 from here and you go directly to a directory assistance trunk. So this is really not a necessary way to reach it. But apparently the Raleigh tandem has been set up so that other tributaries, besides Clayton, can reach directory assistance by dialing 7 plus 411. The 4 would just be absorbed in that case. Well, our next stop is one of those tributaries that needs to dial 7 plus 411 to get directory assistance. It's in a place with a very funny name, Fuquay Varina, and the equipment there is Stromberg XY. This is the first Stromberg XY on this particular phone trip that we'll encounter. It's a step, but it's made by Stromberg Carlson, and mechanically it is quite different from step by step. But it sounds a lot like step by step. What really makes this one charming is the tone plant and the N3 carrier on the 7s going to the Raleigh tandem, which it also uses. That's next.